to the channel. Welcome back to the podcast. We know that there's no Grand Prix this weekend, so don't think we're going insane. We're going to do
We're going to sit in silence.
for 45 minutes and talk about nothing. No, we're going to do a sort of early season review where everybody's up to, how everybody started, and then we're going to touch on a little bit at the end some of the rumours that are circulating around two drivers with 11 World Championships between them, and it would be quite interesting if the sport had neither next year, so we'll go on to that a little bit at the end as well. Before we begin, we'll just give you a quick rundown of how the championship tables, both drivers and constructors, look at this stage, and then obviously we'll go through each team individually just to see how, and give our feedback on each one so far. So Drivers' Championship, we've got Piastri in front on 99 points. Norris is second, 10 points behind him with 89. Verstappen in third then with 87. And then it's George Russell in the Mercedes with 73. And then quite a big gap down then to the rest.
It's not that big.
It's
big enough.
It's big enough. Leclerc on 47 in fifth. Antonelli in sixth with 38. Hamilton then with 31 in seventh. Albon in eighth with 20 points. Ocon in ninth with 14. Stroll 10th with 10. And then you got Gasly and Hulkenberg tied on 6 points with Oliver Behrman. That's 11th, 12th and 13th. Hadjar, Sainz and Tsunoda 14th, 15th and 16th with 5. And then you've got Alonso, Lawson, Doohan and Bortoletto all pointless at this stage. Shifting on to the constructors, you've got McLaren top with 188, Mercedes in second place with 111, Red Bull in third with 89, Ferrari fourth on 78, Williams then fifth, but quite a big gap there to them, with 25, Haas on 20, Aston Martin in seventh with 10, Racing Bulls in eighth with 8, and then you've got Alpine and Sauber in ninth and 10th with 6 points each, which we're going to touch on because we've been praising the Alpine so far.
Yeah.
And slagging off the Sauber. And, well, what do we know? So we'll go through that. So the idea, what we'll do is we'll just go through each team and then just have a quick sort of comment or so on each driver. So, where do you want to start?
Let's start from the top. Let's take it from the top. Let's get McLaren out of the way so we can talk about other things.
If anybody's not a McLaren fan, turn off now because I'm going to praise them now for the next 45 minutes.
Oh, you'll see me turn off at some point.
I think we expected McLaren to be the most dominant car.
Yeah, further ahead than they are, is what I'd have expected.
Yeah, possibly. I think what if we had 5 races, 4 of them won by McLaren, 6 if you include the sprint, which I know you're going to bring up.
No. I've decided to bite my tongue today about the sprint.
Fair enough.
Is Miami a sprint?
Yeah.
Is it?
Yeah. So.
Oh no.
So I mean, five Grand Prix, 4 of them won by McLarens. I think when you look at the two drivers, we've said this so far on the channel. Piastri. It was actually interesting. I read this morning that Verstappen had said Piastri doesn't make mistakes, which is interesting. Which I agree with. Australia aside,
I was just going to say the only mistake I can think of this year, and we were talking about it the other week, that the only reason he wasn't leading the championship at the time was one corner in Australia. But other than that, he's been inch perfect.
Yeah, 3 wins. Three of the 4 McLaren wins have been him. 3 of the Grand Prix wins have been him.
And even the one he didn't win, he looked quicker.
Yeah.
Sorry, at times, there was
Which you referred to?
Melbourne.
Japan. Oh, sorry, I didn't know if you meant. Well, there's 2's not one. Sorry, I thought.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, there isn't. I keep forgetting Japan.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. It was forgettable. So Piastri's been solid. I think we said on episode 1 after Bahrain that Piastri's. I'd say his favourite now.
Yeah.
Early favourite. We'll stress there's still upgrades and stuff for everyone to come. But
I'm gonna say wait till the next weekend where there's no Grand Prix, and we'll probably go back on everything we've just said because that's our right.
It's our channel, not yours.
No. Oh, look, the subscribers are dropping.
Yeah.
We need to do a live one of these, I think, one day, see if we can get more comments, by the way. Eventually. Going McLaren, they were the team to beat from the end of last season, and nothing surprised me so far, barring Piastri's excellence.
Yeah, and I think the difference is with Norris could be in that very same position. And again, there's been a lot of commentary, a lot of interviews, a lot of people, a lot of fan feedback, a lot of pieces that I've written, and the consensus seems to be the same. Lando Norris is just saying that he's his own worst enemy, and he needs to, and he does. We said that on this channel, on this podcast. Well, we've been consistent with that throughout the 2 episodes we've done. He is his own worst enemy, and he needs to find something that's going to calm him down.
He is, because there's a risk, and you know how much I hold this driver in the utmost respect ever. There's a risk he could become a Coulthard.
Yeah.
And you knew I was going to say that before I even said the name.
Yeah.
What Coulthard was exceptional, one of the greats of his time, and was picked to replace Senna. Mm-hmm. You know, that shows how highly Mr. Frank Williams thought of him. But he even openly said in his book he was too nice and too hard on himself. And Norris needs a new approach, because the ability's there. He's blatantly fast and talented. You know,
it's interesting as well with McLaren this year, because they've said in Oscar Piastri's new contract, can't make him be second fiddle to Lando. And the way I interpret that is they can't make him throughout the course of a season. Race specific, if it works for the team, then they can still do that. But
yeah, I mean, as long as it's in the team's best interest, and it's race management rather than you are number 2 driver. This is at this point to maximise this race. Yep. Let Lando through, or vice versa. Let Oscar through. You know,
I wonder if at what point during the season we spoke about this. We didn't have the podcast, but we spoke about this last year. I wonder if at what point they do it the other way. Oscar was very accommodating last year in helping Lando to try and be the world champion. We obviously saw whatever happened in Hungary, and I know Lando gave that back. People can have their own opinion whether that was the right thing to do, because the drivers' championship was a possibility at that stage. But it'd be interesting to see, does Lando fall into that bracket of a Mark Webber, a Rubens Barrichello, a David Coulthard, an Eddie Irvine, all these drivers in the past that have been very talented in their own right, but have been second. It's very, very early to say this. I'm aware that the teammates I've just referred to are Vettel's teammate. You know what I mean? Häkkänen's teammate, and Damon Hill's teammate, and Michael Schumacher's teammate. So, all right, Piastri has won 3 races, and I'm talking about him in that glowing terms. But my point is, at what point will it come this season that they have to say to Lando, especially, I mean, we just said 77 points clear in the constructors. That isn't won by any stretch of the imagination. No. But if they keep this trajectory, there'll have to be a point where they say to Lando, we've got to back Oscar to win this.
I'm going to say something controversial that you won't like, to know you're a Norris fan. I don't think Piastri's going to need it.
Possibly not. Well, he hasn't needed it so
far. I think that's the way Piastri's going about racing this year, is rely on no one but yourself.
I think the thing. Yeah, but I think, look, we've got Ferrari will get better, Mercedes will get better.
Sorry, yes, they will.
Ferrari should get better. Mercedes will get better, but anyway, sorry, go off on a tangent. Yeah. McLaren, brilliant start to the season. Oscar, I don't think he's necessarily surprised anyone, because I think we all knew that.
I think his consistency has surprised everyone.
Yeah, possibly.
He's constantly the fastest.
But he's always been Mr. Cool. You see all the memes going around where he's like the faceless man, where if he's in a bad mood, a happy mood, it's just the same.
He is Raikkonen version 2, but more polite with other people.
Yeah, he's a nice.
He's a nice Kimi.
The Gen Z version of Kimi Raikkonen.
Oh, don't get me started on generations. We'll be here all week.
Moving on to that's not in order. Sorry, moving on to Mercedes, who are second.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, just to point out, I am looking down at Ant's notes today because I've forgotten my notes, so I'm completely freehand, which is going to be great. Mercedes.
Surprise package.
Yeah, but still not scintillating.
No, they're not, but I don't think anybody would have expected them. Again, we're only 5 races in, we're a fifth of the season through, so it's early days, and that is the idea of this episode, to do early predictions. I think I expected more from other teams. So we knew McLaren would be where they are.
Yep.
Certainly, I suppose they'd be disappointed if they weren't first. We knew Red Bull would be in and around, and we'll go on to them obviously in a second. We knew Ferrari. I thought Ferrari would be a little bit.
I did.
More sort of competing for race wins. Again, I know only 5 races in.
Yeah.
But I thought they'd be higher up, just with the calibre of driver that they've now got. And I know I like to have digs at you, but no, it's obviously not a bad car.
No, it's much better in race trim, but the problem at the moment is a lot of cars are very good in race trim.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Ferrari is a match to the McLaren. It's just that they're nowhere near the McLaren by the time the race starts.
But I suppose by that, to go back onto Mercedes, that's my point. Is I think they're
a very good blocker between the two teams.
Yeah, and I think if you just said to me at this point, if you just said at the start of the season Mercedes would be second at this, albeit early stage, I would have been surprised at that, because I think you've got to take into account the fact that they lost Lewis, and they've replaced him with a child,
Antonelli,
who has, and if we go on to the drivers separately, I think George Russell's been a cracking start to the season.
Oh, stellar start.
Genuinely consistent. I've rated his 5 positions down because I thought this shows his level of consistency. Third, fifth, second, and fifth. And we mentioned on the Saudi Arabia episode that was a bit of a surprise and a letdown that he just kind of disintegrates into nothingness in Saudi Arabia.
Yeah.
So if you take that race
but
away,
both cars did, to be fair.
Yeah. So if you take that race away, that's third, fifth, and second.
Yeah.
That's a really solid start to the season, to be fair, for George Russell.
It is, and I think it's done Antonelli a disservice that Russell's been so good. And what I mean by that is Antonelli's losing the qualifying 5-0, I think.
Yeah.
But Antonelli's been standout. He belongs in that car.
Yeah.
He's got so much. Both, him and any other rookie have got so much to learn. These cars are more advanced than ever before. It's the last year of this. It is. These are the refined cars.
Yeah.
Probably more difficult to drive because of that, as you've seen. The McLaren's great when it's not hassled.
Yeah.
The Ferrari on its day is quick, but seems difficult to drive. The Red Bull is a world beater, but
we'll talk about that in a second.
Yeah, so the fact that he's cutting all rookies, by the way, not just Antonelli, but he's come in, he's been incredibly consistent, quick, calm as well, but he's been beaten 5-0 so far in quality. It's just a real disservice to him, but that shows just how good Russell has been.
And I suppose who's the fair comparison for Kimi Antonelli at the minute? Is it George Russell? Because we know, obviously, in Formula One, your first rival is your teammate. Is it Russell? Because if it is, he's been beaten.
Yeah.
Or is it the other rookies? Because it's unfair to compare against the other rookies, because obviously
he's got a much better car.
Yeah. And I think who's probably got the second best car of all the rookies? Behrman?
Well, yeah. Well, Behrman or Hadjar, I suppose.
Yeah, sorry, yeah. So that, and they're not comparable.
No, I think who you're comparing to at the moment, and this is going to hurt me to say it, is someone who's in a new car at the front, who, and that's Lewis.
Yeah.
And Antonelli's above him in the points.
Yeah.
So that's, and by the way, there's a little bit of, I'm sure Antonelli wants to keep it that way because he replaced Lewis. So
and that will be the bit between his teeth, won't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
And it will be the bit between Mercedes' teeth as well to probably beat Ferrari this year, to almost say to Lewis, man, you got that.
I don't think they will. I'm going to throw that out there.
I don't. I think the experience of Leclerc and Hamilton, and we know that Ferrari, they did it last year, we know that Ferrari will gradually get better. But if they do what they did last year, they'll get better to the point where it's almost, I wouldn't say redundant, but it'll certainly be too late to compete for the drivers.
Yeah, it'll be one of those, the toe-to-toe for the constructors again or something, because, I don't know, saying that, the consistency of the two McLarens.
Well, I was just about to say the difference in last year is that Verstappen was the only consistent point scorer for Red Bull, which is why they were catchable.
As he is this year,
if McLaren continue the rate they're at, nobody might be able to catch them.
Barring them starting to squabble.
Yeah, quite, yeah. Barring Rosberg Hamilton 2016,
which has a potential,
absolutely feasible. Yeah.
I can see it happening. I just think if that was the case, it'd be Norris rattled. No, I don't think Piastri.
Yeah, I don't think anything. I mean, I think that's what happens when you grow up in Australia and you wake up and there's tarantulas and spiders and you.
Oh yeah, every animal in the world is going to kill you.
Pool. Yeah. I think you're just not bothered at all.
Sharks in your pool
by life. So Mercedes for me, second best team, and I think they warrant that. I think they've been the most consistent without a race win or anything like that, but I think they've consistently been there. Saudi being the disappointment, but we touched on that last time.
Really nice race gear as well, by the way. Just as a sound point, whilst we're doing reviews.
And fantastic test driver.
Bottas. Oh.
We just love Bottas.
Bottas is a god. If we can get Bottas back on the grid. Because we have a say. But that's... if we can campaign...
If we can get more followers, if we can get this as going everywhere, we will push for a Bottas return.
We need a Bottas return,
of the mullet. Third,
Red Bull.
Red Bull.
What is there left not to say? What is there left to say that we haven't already said again?
I just think it's the same old story. No matter who you put in that second car, the car isn't as great as everyone thinks. Whether you say it's newy or not, kind of redundant at this point. He's not there. Verstappen is excelling again.
Yeah.
Lawson, I think it was really unfair. How poor he was regardless. He didn't have enough time. Tsunoda was the right choice from day one.
And that's the point. It was unfair, but it was right. But it was right to do in winter 2024.
Yeah, I mean, we've said this on previous episodes, haven't we? It should have always been Tsunoda. Yeah. I still believe Tsunoda's going to come good. I just think he's only going to come as good as the car because he can't Verstappen that car. He can't outdrive what that car is going to give him.
That's the point. That car isn't great.
No.
And it's a perfect. I like that word. It's being Verstappened.
Yeah, it is. Max is just taking a car and trashing it to get where he wants it to be. There's no one else on the grid, I don't think, who can do that. There's a bold statement. I'd have said.
We said the same.
I'd have said Alonso once upon a time. He did it with a few ropey Ferraris in the past and a ropey McLaren. He put it in places it shouldn't have been. I don't know where Alonso's head is, but that's for another.
Yeah, that's for another team. But in fairness to Verstappen, we are talking about. So when you look at the teams, I think Red Bull have got 70. Red Bull have got 79. Verstappen's got 77. So that means that the other two drivers have got 2. They are Tsunoda's points, obviously Lawson's points.
Yeah.
So
careful.
When you pointless in the championship, not pointless in life. When you think that he's got that vast majority, it proves one of two theories. It either proves that car's terrible and it's being Verstappened, as you said, and I like that. I'm going to stick with that. And it proves just how good he is, or does it prove that Red Bull is constantly being designed around Max Verstappen, and you could bring Senna back from the dead and almost put him in that car. And because it is being built around, and that's not a dig to Ayrton Senna by any stretch of the imagination. He's a god.
He could probably drive that car that well, but that's.
I mean, obviously it's hypothetical, But my point is that car so designed around Max Verstappen that no matter who you put in it, and then it begs the question: is the car actually that bad, or is it just being made to look bad by others? You know, I know that's
it's that bad because Max isn't winning.
Fair
and
point.
If you built a car.
Yeah, look at
for Max that Max could drive, he would win everything. And I'm not belittling any team, the hours are going on, but Verstappen is the best out there at getting what he wants.
Yeah.
I think that's a fair way of saying.
Yeah.
And if he can't make it sing, then there's something fundamentally wrong with the car as well.
Yeah, no, agreed. Moving on to... do you want to... You can tell by the groan.
Ferrari. Right. Very, very brief because I could go on forever and no one wants to hear me do that. Leclerc is proving just how good a driver he is. That's my first thing. The car was fundamentally flawed at the start. We saw that, the fact that it kept bottoming out. It got disqualified because it was running too low to the ground. They're having to lift it up. It's not a comfortable car to drive. I don't think that benefits either driver.
Yeah.
Going off, you've still never released your inner theories about Leclerc.
Well,
so I'll share them a little bit with my analysis. Is Leclerc's prone to, if it's not going right for him, being a little bit haphazard or binning it or or not being at the ball game for want of a very American. There you go, Miami next. He's not in the ball game. It can go missing when it's not working for him. This year he hasn't. Not once. He lost his front wing in China. I know he got disqualified, but he was still the quicker Ferrari with bits missing.
I mean, you can see from that again. I've written down the positions actually, so you can see the same way that we said this about Russell's 5 positions have shown consistency. Leclerc's have shown an improvement. You've got 8th disqualified, 4th, and 3rd. So that shows that you've got. There is, and you even said it, to be fair, you said that the upgrades weren't coming for Bahrain, where they got 4th, and that the upgrades were coming more for a track like Saudi, and a Miami probably fits more in line with a Saudi model than a Bahrain model.
It does. The only concern...
Street circuit,
but... The only concern with Ferrari and Miami is the tyre wear. And it's always been a concern at Miami.
And the other concern with Ferrari and Miami is that we'll get all this media talk that they're going to have a special edition blue car and it'll have a blue sticker.
Have you seen their merchandise for Miami?
No, there's a. You sent me. I think.
No, that was his Monaco cap. Apparently, they don't anymore. Okay. It's white.
Oh, sorry, I did see it. Yeah,
they've inverted the colours, so it's white. And now, last year's Miami livery. Maybe one day we'll do a livery thing. It was so disappointing. It was. They threatened this blue car because there was a blue Ferrari that drove in America because it was the American racing colours. And we were going to get this blue Ferrari to reinvigorate.
Did it have a blue line on it?
It had a blue stripe where they had a red and yellow stripe. And the team wear was great because it was that pale blue. It had the old Ferrari badge.
Because it made no sense.
Even the drivers' overalls were blue.
Can we establish that the kings of livery changes last year were McLaren?
They were McLaren. I mean, Red Bull have won it this year already for that white.
Yeah, that white one.
Anyway, going back to where we're going.
Sorry,
Ferrari, disappointing, but there is a little glimmer of hope. And if anyone's going to get a proper race win at the moment, it's going to be Charles.
I agree. Yeah.
Lewis, I can't badmouth him because we've seen how good he is. It's one of those very difficult ones. I want to give him time, but like you said last episode, how much time can you give him?
And this is the thing. I think the problem you've got when you have such a successful career like Lewis has had, and you can have your own debates. He's certainly in the greatest of all time conversation.
It has to be. Whether you like it or
100%.
It has to be.
Yeah, I think he's certainly that. You can have it's a debate because there's people like Senna who didn't get as obviously great tragedy, but he didn't get as much time as he should have got.
Yeah.
And there's people like Schumacher because we'll go on this in a bit, but he pulled in '96. He pulled that Ferrari from being completely and utterly useless to actually a dominating car again, and he obviously did it in the Benetton. There was a nobody. You could argue that Hamilton hasn't necessarily done that, but could you then argue that he built Mercedes? So the point is, he is absolutely in that greatest of all time conversation.
He needs to prove it. I think is
fair. Yeah, and that's the point I'm getting at. I think when I said it was I stand by that. I think Lewis's start to his Ferrari career has been disappointing.
I think he'll agree with you.
Yeah, I don't think he'll ever hit
Lewis, if you want to reply.
I think you're right. I think you would agree, but I don't think he's ever going to know A, who I am, and B, that I've said this. But I think he'd be disappointed because I think he's so much better than he's proven at the minute. And yeah, we know he's struggling to get to grips with the new car. We know that the Ferrari isn't great, but he's almost got to be looking over his shoulder. Sorry, looking ahead at the Mercedes and think there's a point. Put him in that Mercedes and he'd have probably won a Grand Prix.
I believe so.
And that's the point. And I think he's now gone to a team where, like you've just said, and rightly so, Leclerc's more likely to win a Grand Prix at this stage than Hamilton is.
I suppose the way...
You're not going to bring up the sprint?
Like I said, I'm dropping that because there's one in Miami, I think, and I won't be able to say only team to win a sprint from there. So I'm pretending we've never said it and it doesn't happen. But I think that the problem is, and the argument is, and I'm very biased towards science anyway, as you know.
Yeah.
If Carlos hadn't left, would he have been closer to Charles? I think so.
I do, but I think, but
then again, Lewis has got to get used to the car. I suppose it shows with science to Albon in terms of points as well that there is a. So
there's a
I'm going to give him benefit of the doubt until the next break. Let's see how Miami. Well, he's already come out and said Miami's going to be a horror show for him. So, what's the one after Miami?
I don't know, actually, to be fair.
Anyway, we'll give him a few more and then I'll be a bit more critical. But at the moment, I'm saying there's a 7-time world champion in that car. And he's got the ability to show it. He's not past it.
But I think when it was announced he was going, it was for him the chance to drive a red car and to possibly win his 8th world championship in a red car. We touched on this. Everybody's a Ferrari fan a little bit. And then obviously for them, they would have seen, even if we don't have a great car, our best chance of winning a world championship, we said this is not Leclerc and it's not Sainz. No. If you can give them a car as good as, say, for instance, the McLaren is so far this season, those two will win you a world championship. I firmly believe that.
If you had to go toe-to-toe with Max, there's only one person who holds it and has.
Yeah, and I think that Ferrari has to be an 8 out of 10 with
with a fully up to speed Lewis Hamilton to win races.
Yes.
That McLaren at the moment is at a 9 or 10, 9 out of 9, 9.5 out of 10. I wouldn't say it's perfect, but it's a 9, 9.5 out of 10.
The Ferrari's a solid 7 at the moment. But with the potential to easily be a 10.
It's
is where I'm going.
We've said that. It's getting
Williams. Well, sorry, do you
No, agreed, no.
Williams, it's coming good.
Yeah, this is where we said this at the end of the Saudi one. I think pre-Saudi, I was a little bit disappointed with Williams in as much as there was a lot of hype made over there. You take the top 4 out, Williams have got the best driver lineup by far.
Top 4, I'd say Williams have a better driver lineup than Red Bull. If you count the pairing.
Yeah, all right, fair.
So, I mean, it's unfair, and it's Max on his own is pretty much a better driver.
Max is back. Yeah, Max. But if you consider that their target has got to be best of the rest, it's got to be to beat Alpine, Racing Bulls, Aston Martin to that sort of 5th place.
Well, they are now, aren't they?
They are now, the 5th.
Yeah.
If they could maybe nip past a Ferrari or you know what I mean,
a vulnerable Ferrari at the moment.
If they could do that, then obviously that's top. There is a big gap between the top 4.
I'm sure Sainz would love to get past at least one Ferrari.
Yeah, that's his dream. But I think I think Williams is where we sort of expected them to be. Albon's been the better of the two. And to be fair, he's
barring Saudi where Carlos towed him home for those points.
Yeah, but what's interesting is in the Drivers' Championship, Albon is 15 points clear of Red Bull number 2.
Yes.
As a combination between Tsunoda and Lawson. So I'm not saying he's 15 points clear of Tsunoda, he's not 15 points clear of Lawson. In 5 races, he's got 15 points more than the person who's been sat in Max Verstappen's teammate's car.
Which is a standout performance.
That is, again, we've said that the Red Bull's not fantastic, and they get that, and I'm not trying to sound contradictory. I still stand by that Red Bull's not great. But for a Williams, who would love to... 5th is their target, but there's got to be some races where they've got to look and think, if there's a safety car, if there's a couple wipe each other out in front, this is a real chance for us to get a podium, maybe.
What I was going to say, what I'd like to see is the need to increase that gap on 6th, 7th, 8th. Pretty much make sure 5th is theirs, and I'd love to see him take a few risks. Strategy-wise, or a couple of gambles, because I think they're nailed on for 5th if they keep going, but I'd expect that with Carlos and Alexander as the driver. Alexander, full Sunday name.
I think, I've been a little bit in the same way that I've been... I know you're reading my notes on science. I've just read them myself, and I don't actually understand what they mean. So I'm gonna spitball this.
Why Williams?
Yeah, I don't get what I meant by that.
They're the only ones who wanted him.
It made sense yesterday.
Or Alpine.
For science, in the same way, we have just said that Hamilton's been a little bit disappointing because a lot of the time has been taken up trying to get used to a Ferrari, and he's being outperformed by his teammate quite substantially. The same level of accusation's got to be thrown at Sainz.
It has, but I still think, and people can play this back to me at the end of the season, Sainz will have more points than Albon by the end.
Ooh.
Oh, now there's an interesting flutter, isn't it?
We've got to make a note of that. Remember that.
Yeah.
Make a note of that. Sainz will outscore Albon.
Yeah, I do believe that.
Okay, fair enough.
Carlos, please don't let me down now. I love you.
I do. Yeah, and I want to see Sainz. Sainz. I went through a spell of not liking Sainz because he sold us out for Ferrari, but it was sort of tongue in cheek, not like, because you can't not like him.
No.
But yeah, I hope Sainz as well. And again, we touched on this in the last episode. As a British Formula One fan, you are obliged to want Williams to do well. So the fact that they are doing well, is a tick.
And side point, huge credit to the fact they've kept the Williams name. Darrellton or whatever. It's so nice to see that that's staying around, because I don't think Formula One would be the same without Williams in there.
No, yeah, no, agreed.
That's a big. Anyway, moving on. I think Williams are doing what we expect, us to expect. I don't know if anyone else expected it, but I think they're going to easily get 5th.
Nice to see James Vowles doing well as well. Like, this is no disrespect to Claire. This is no disrespect to Claire Williams.
No,
I think what everybody at Williams wanted to do by putting Claire in place when a dad couldn't do it anymore, is they wanted to continue that as a family team.
It was the right
decision. It was the right thing to do, but I think she came in. I don't know if she's responsible for the team going backwards as quickly as it did, or if she came in at a time when it was already on that downward trajectory, just didn't have enough in it to fix it. Again, not a dig at Claire Williams whatsoever. I just think there was a lot quite bad about that team at the time.
And I think what it's really... James Voles, I've got a lot of time for James Voles. I think he speaks incredibly well. I think he knows what he's got to do, and he's got that very much set out. If you watch Drive to Survive, the way he goes about the Carlos Sainz thing, for such a polite, seemingly well-mannered man, he was absolutely cutthroat about making sure that Sainz...
absolutely.
Williams.
Absolutely.
And again, Sainz, I want him to do a little bit better, but I'm glad that Williams are going to start to give him a car. Albon, really impressed by him. And James Voles, I'm dead happy for him to...
Oh yeah, it's a feel good story.
Yeah,
Williams pushing along, and hopefully...
I'd love for him to finish second.
More chance than Ferrari. Moving on, Haas.
Better start than last year.
I think they've been really impressive. They took a gamble on two completely new drivers. Behrman completely outperforming Bortoleto at the moment. The rookie you said wasn't going to be a future world champion is showing his class. And to be fair, everything.
So you didn't bring up the sprint, but you brought that up.
Yeah, I had to drop one of them in. Ocon, I think, although performances haven't gone his way so far, is talking really upbeat about Haas, which is great to hear.
We haven't seen that kamikaze side of Esteban Ocon, have we?
He's become a very calm leader, which is
yeah. And
really
they took a risk. They did take a massive risk because we saw, and I know there's history between Gasly and Ocon.
Yeah.
So that arguably was never going to work as a teammate. But when Haas took him on, because Haas's driver choices for me in recent years have always been well they were not safe, and then they were incredibly safe. You think when they took on Schumacher and Mazepin, I'm not even going to entertain a conversation about, because I mean, wow.
It wasn't about the sponsor money, because an American team went Russian. Russian.
Yeah, and then the minute Russia became an issue, he was gone.
Oh yeah, we went back to American flags on the car, and it was
but Schumacher, I like the Schumacher one, and it's not because of his name. I like what Haas were trying to do of the whole give two young drivers a chance. Yeah. Let's bleed them into the sport. And then Mazepin, it didn't work. Schumacher, it didn't work. But I never felt like they gave them either. They gave that sort of approach a chance. And then the next time we turn around, it's Magnussen and Hulkenberg. Now, we've had this discussion in the past that what's the point in going back to somebody like a Hulkenberg, like a Magnussen, when why not trying to blood these new drivers in? Because you can see with your Antonellis, you can see obviously Lando Norris is Oscar Piastri is an incredible example.
Charles Leclerc.
Leclerc. But my point, McLaren could have gone when Sainz left. McLaren could have gone and got whoever, but they went for the young option.
Yeah, they took him from.
I know, but but they went and got the young option. I bet he's glad about that.
I bet he is. Yeah.
But I don't know. And then Haas, they went really safe, and Magnussen and Hulkenberg, they never really gave them anything. But I think what they've done this season with a combination of Ocon is your experience, but certainly wouldn't call him safe.
I think they've almost turned around to Ocon and said, "Prove you're a leader."
The
way he's going about things is very calculated.
This was almost Ocon's last chance to prove that his reputation in F1 won't go down as just this mad,
this talented lunatic. That's a bit extreme, but
I know, but I get
go with that.
Yeah, I know. I get what you mean, because it feels like it's his last chance. And to be fair, so far he's grasped it. And again, in Behrman, you've got Ocon, the more experienced. I think I've written here that there's an 8-point gap between the two. Yeah. So that's not a massive gap for Behrman. All right, Ocon's got twice as many points in, but it's not a massive gap.
He's not being embarrassed by his much more experience.
And in the same way as we said about Antonelli's not being embarrassed by Russell.
No, Russell's just on a run of form.
Yes, Behrman's certainly not being embarrassed by Ocon either. So Ocon's impressed me with, like you said, proving he's a leader. This reputation he's got is quietening down. Early days, I accept. And Behrman, to be fair, Behrman's impressed me. The way that they've just been consistently picking up points here and there. Yeah,
they've not shocked anyone with this incredible performance. It's just consistently chipping away. And both of them getting used to the car. We've used that excuse for numerous more experienced drivers. Haas are doing it on a shoestring as well. They don't have... I mean, it'd be very interesting to see how much money Toyota want to plough into it and how far they could go in
a few years.
But at the moment, it's like 4 blokes in a bit of Maranello
and you've got to as well consider as well that when the regulation changes come in, and they're going to obviously have, like you said, Toyota are going to be involved. Haas could get away with what we're going to cover with Sauber and what we have covered with Sauber. In as much as giving up on this season because 2026 is their big one. They don't necessarily need the money from their position in the constructors because that money will come externally. But fair play to them, they've actually come with a decent car. And even gone...
Well, you say a decent car. Do you remember the first race of the season when they're going, I don't know why we're so
that's
slow.
very true.
And testing, they only ran the hard tyre.
Yeah.
They didn't set any fast laps. It was constant, solid, long distance. They looked like they were in trouble. And someone turned it around and
I think one thing
impressive.
As well, I'm going to hate myself for saying this, because like every Formula 1 fan, I love the man. But it is proving that Gene Haas was right in getting rid of Gunter Steiner. I think Gunter Steiner...
I'm going to agree, but painfully.
Yeah, it pains me to say. I think Gunter Steiner had done a magnificent job of getting them where they were.
And making a name for them.
Yeah. But I think he served his purpose, unfortunately. And I think now they needed some people that are actually going to look at the technical... I'm not saying Gunter Steiner doesn't know what he's talking about, of course not. But
he worked for Red Bull, don't forget. He knew his stuff.
Yeah, of course he did. But I fear that he was becoming a little bit of a character and there was some negative energy coming around Haas.
Yeah, and I think I'd love to talk to him.
100%. What a man.
I think he'd probably agree with what we've said.
Yeah. And that's, like I say, it's no disrespect to him. I think he'd done what he was brought in to do, and I don't think he had the capability to take them to that next stage.
Agreed.
So Haas, I've thought, brilliant. I know full well that these aren't in order.
Well, we'll just go with what's on the list there.
Go in. Yeah.
Well, again, it's not in any particular order. Well, it might be, but Aston, a green wheelie bin.
Yeah. Yeah, we touched on this last time. And it was interesting, actually, because we touched on this with... you said it last week, that the interesting thing is that they've got 10 points, all 10 are Strolls.
Yeah, and we know Fernando's better than that.
Yeah.
Sorry, it sounds like we've spent hours or minutes talking about, the top flight teams, but I really do struggle to have anything to say about Aston. Yeah, it's really different, and it's such a shame because I love Aston Martin. I think, we both grew up childishly being massive James Bond fan. Yeah. Aston Martin was the car. Yeah, if it wasn't a Ferrari that I wanted when I was growing up, it was an Aston, And this season just feels like they turn up.
Yeah. Yeah.
And in no way is that Alonso's happy place.
No, it's not great for them. I've written here, are they focusing on 2026? If they are, that's a lot of pressure.
I hope they come out with
that's a lot of pressure, though.
Yeah.
Isn't it? And there's nothing really much more we can say on Aston Martin that we've not already said.
Check out the rumours bit in a minute. I'm sure they'll crop up.
Yeah, it's been dreadful. Alpine... I wanted to touch on this with Alpine. Yeah. Jack doing pointless to this point, again, in the constructors, not in life. Gasly, we've been full of praise for Pierre Gasly. He's got all 6 of Alpine's points.
Yeah.
We've said that Alpine has looked quite impressive at points. Now, interestingly, we've just slagged off the Aston Martin. We're about to say that Sauber are not concentrating on anything before 2026. It looks like they've completely given up on anything this season. And yet, Alpine are 4 points behind Aston Martin.
Yep.
And level on 6 points with Sauber. So it's an anomaly, because I actually still stand by what we've said in praise of Gasly. But why? Because they're worse than... in the constructors' standings at the minute, they are worse than Aston Martin, and they are as bad as Sauber.
Yeah. Yeah, what I will say is Gasly is performing as well as we know Gasly can when he's on form. And he seems to be enjoying the lack of battle in the garage.
Yeah.
I think doing a bit of an odd one this, but I think he's up there as driver of the year so far. Oh, hear me out. As soon as he signed that contract, Briatore came in. And he's not one for being behind the curtain with anything, is it? And he pretty much put Doohan's drive on the line before he'd even got into the car.
Yeah.
And they signed Colapinto after everything that he did with Williams last year. He has been under so much pressure, so much so that even Alpine have said they could have handled it better. And yet, he's done a good job. Yes, the car shows flashes of greatness, but not all-round greatness.
I'd agree with you that he's done a good job to a degree, but there's 4 drivers who haven't got a point.
Valid.
I'm only playing devil's advocate.
No, I'm just saying, Saudi Arabia, we both agreed, he drove excellently. Yeah, they pitted him on the first lap.
Yeah.
what did they expect from a kid who's getting, learning F1? I think he's actually performing better than I expected him to. I thought they'd have dropped him by now. So the fact that he's still going, and you can see he's improving it, all the confidence is growing. I don't know if someone's putting their arm around him and saying, actually, you're staying for a bit.
Yeah.
But he looks more solid.
That Alpine, I feel like, is just a 1 or 2 upgrades away from being up there with Haas and Williams.
Yeah,
maybe
but the massive question for any of these, any team, is when do you stop bringing those 1 or 2 upgrades, and when do you start focusing on these new regs?
Yeah.
Yes, it is 1 or 2 upgrades. Will we see them?
That's
the issue.
There's been a lot less upgrade talk in general, hasn't there?
Yeah.
There's been a lot less.
I think that the one thing, I know I'm going back to Ferrari, but one thing about Ferrari is a lot of it will be set up because they've changed all the suspension layout, from last year.
It's not so much an upgrade.
It's learning how to, and I think that's where they might make massive gains when everyone else is going, I'm not going to build anything else this car.
At what point do Alpine? You get your point.
Yeah, at what point do Alpine say,
give up.
Enough's enough, you're doing a great job, guys? Yeah. And that's, I agree with you. They could catch Williams or chase down Williams. Will they have the budget and appetite for 26 coming? I'm sure they have the appetite, the racers. They don't turn up and go,
at what
fancy
point
70.
do you give up on the money? And stop? But Racing Bulls, 8th place, 8th.
Hadjar is one of the drivers of the season.
Yeah, to put this, I think Lawson so their 8 points is made up by Lawson's got none, Hadjar's got 5 of them, and Sonoda before he got upgraded to Red Bull has got 3. So I think the bottom line with Liam Lawson, what we touched on this in Saudi Arabia, because I don't want to go too much into the Liam Lawson thing. I don't want to see a driver be treated in the manner that I feel like he was treated. We touched on that with Red Bull earlier. Yeah. And the one thing in Saudi, there was some good racing from him. I thought he deserved a point. It was a bit unfortunate for him that he didn't. I thought that was hopefully a little bit of a confidence boost that he needs just to kick himself back into.
I think so. And
good driver in there.
And I think that the standout for me with Hadjar was he binned it on the formation lap in Melbourne. That's not to say, what a silly, nearly swore, person. Sausage. It's more, a lot of more experienced drivers also binned it. Sainz binned it under the safety car.
So,
the confidence to come back and push still, and Red Bull and Racing Bulls doesn't feel like a very friendly atmosphere if you're a new guy.
Yeah.
I know you're either in or you're dropped. You've got
the big brother pressure, haven't you?
You have, and you're still looking, and you're still sat there, and you're still in the same stable as Max Verstappen. You might be in a different car, but you're still going to get judged on Max Verstappen, Seb Vettel. Well, there's only really them two, but look at the names that they've had through.
I suppose the only thing I will say with Racing Bulls is I think at the start of the season we honestly thought we were entering into a season where the Racing Bulls might, and there was moments in Australia that we thought actually that Racing Bull and a little bit in China as well, that Racing Bull might actually be able to compete with the Red Bull.
It's funny, isn't it? Because both Sonoda and Lawson have said the Racing Bull is easier to drive than the Red Bull. Not faster.
No, not. Yeah.
Easier to keep on track. So if it's easier, you can push it further to the limit. Now, there's no doubt in the Red Bull has a much higher limit.
Yeah.
Sorry, a much faster limit if you can get there. The problem is there's only one man who can take it there.
Yeah. But I think, to be fair, Hadjar's been absolutely up there as a driver of the season for me. I think, again, when you consider what he did in Australia, that must have been heartbreaking for him. All those years trying to get into F1. He's done well. Lawson will. It's funny, actually, because both the drivers that they've got have both had really difficult starts to the season for one reason or another. And have both, Hadjar's already sort of gone through it. Lawson's starting to show a sign. So and then, last but not least, Sauber. We did say, we just touched on this joint last with Alpine. Makes no sense to criticise, to praise Alpine and then criticise Sauber. So we will say that fair play to them for getting 6
Very surprised. Well, not surprised that Hülkenberg's sneaking points because that man has made a career of
sneaking points,
being incredibly consistent in cars that are probably below the standard he can be at. It's a bit of a mouthful, but I believe that he showed how quick he was.
He had that spell, didn't he, Hülkenberg, where he was like touted for Ferrari reportedly, and there was a spell where there was quite a few bigger names that were interested in him, and it just never seemed to materialise for him. There's a part of me that really wants Audi to come in 2026 and give a car straight from the off
He deserves a podium, don't you?
Yeah, that's my point. We're not. Audi aren't going to come in next year and give a car that will win races, but it would be really nice to see them provide a car that can compete.
Just to give Hulkenberg something, whilst he's at the twilight of his career, bless him, he's been phenomenal, and he's been superb for teams that haven't deserved to be where he's taken them. I think that stands out with Sauber and 6 points. That car's not great.
No, but he's done well to get what they've got.
He has, and to be honest with you, he's kept a very talented. I'm not going to do the Bortoletto slate. I'm not going to slate you for what you said. A very talented rookie has been kept very quiet by Mr. Hulkenberg.
Yeah, and I think the thing is with Bortoletto, I don't think you can use this. We said this. No. He is a very, very talented young driver, Gabriel.
Is he not F2 world champion?
Well, he did back-to-back, did he? F3 and F2.
Well, I mean...
So, you can't take away from how talented he must be, but he has just got to... And it makes you think it must be difficult to keep going to work when you know that your aim is for next year.
He's got the hardest job out of all the rookies.
Yeah,
because he's gone from winning to propping up the grid. Propping up the grid. And to suddenly learn that and to gain that motivation. And it's a harder learning curve than likes of Antonelli, who's tasted the points, who's impressing. Yeah. Behrman had a cameo in a Ferrari last year and did... You know, he's felt that top end. Hadjar, to a degree, is in Red Bull.
I mean, is he the only rookie that's not got points?
Yes.
No, Lawson. But
Lawson's not a rookie.
I was going to say, it depends whether you count Lawson as a rookie.
Sorry, he might be classed as a rookie. I don't know. I don't class him as a rookie.
Who are the other two that are pointless? Sorry, keep talking.
Sorry.
Doohan. Sorry.
Doohan's the other rookie.
That are pointless. Yeah.
Both are doing better than I think anyone's given them credit for, is what I'd say there.
I suppose the finishing thing will be how many points you finish the season with, and there's a fear that even though I have a lot of confidence in Bortoletto being a successful one day in F1,
pointless.
He might end up finishing his first season pointless, which will be. That's a tough one.
That'll be destroying for him. And now I know he's signed his multi-year, isn't he? So he is there when Audi comes.
Yeah.
But he's going to learn very quickly that no team walks into F1 and wins.
Oh yeah.
Sorry, I know the Braun name walked into F1, but Braun was Honda's money that built.
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah, 100%.
You don't just turn up and win. Red Bull went through a lot of a massive sticking period when they first came in.
Yeah, Mercedes did. It was coming back, but yeah.
Yeah. I think that's where we stand in terms of. I think that was a nice review.
I do. So let us know in the comments if you agree or disagree with anything that we said.
Please comment. It's always nice to see people responding, even if you think I'm an idiot and I'm wrong.
Yeah. And stick around because we are about to go through a quick overview of some of the rumours that we've heard ahead of 2026 and what they might mean for the teams involved. So stick around. Okay, I'm going to just quickly run through some of the rumours that have been circulating around the paddock. Namely regarding, as we touched on at the start, regarding two drivers. So you got one, Max Verstappen. There's a little bit of rumour about where he may or may not be in 2026. And then on Lewis Hamilton as well. So in that, you're talking about a 4-time world champion and a 7-time world champion. So that would be 11 world titles potentially taken off the grid in 2026. So we'll start with Max. So there are rumours, 3 potential suitors for him for 2026. One is Aston Martin, so a reunion with Adrian Newey, potentially in the works. 2 is Mercedes. There's been a lot of talk about him flirting with Toto Wolff and a potential for a trip there. And 3 is to spend time with his baby.
Which he's already teased
Which he has already teased himself, that he will be taking a year out to spend time with Kelly Piquet and a baby that's his this time. So, woo! We went there.
Moving on.
So, firstly, I think you're right. I think the most likely is that he'll take a year out. Which
out of those 3 options, I think it depends how he reacts this season. If he indeed doesn't win it, will he either have that fire to go, well, I'm not having that, I'm sticking around until I win again? Or will he go, now's the time that I need to take a step back? And you know, having kids is it's a massive part. It's, it has made or broke a lot of drivers. I don't think it will mentally play on Verstappen's mind. It's what does he choose to do?
Yeah, and I think if he does, I think the only difficulty is if you take a year out. We've seen it in other sports, in other sort of walks. I always wonder how easy it is to take. I mean, we're not talking about a 4-week paternity here.
Yeah.
We're talking about 12 months away from it. And if it is to be 2026, he will arguably walk back into a completely unrecognisable sport with the regulation changes. Of course, he will stay in touch with it. Of course, but I mean, if he were to leave and say, I'm absolutely coming back to Red Bull in 2027, then that relationship with Horner and with Helmut Marko and with his race engineer and everything else will stay quite tight-knit, and they will continue to inform him of everything that's going on. He'll have simulator time, no doubt.
He'll probably turn up to some of the races, as a spectator.
And I think he'll spend a lot of time in the simulator, assuming he'd be at home in the Netherlands. I'm assuming he could go, quite easily for him to get to the UK, to Milton Keynes. So he could spend a lot of time figuring that out. If indeed his commitment is to take a year out, but then return to the sport in 2027, but without a home, you'd get snapped up in an instant. We know that.
Yeah.
But without him committing to a team for 2027, he's going to. He loses that opportunity. If he says, I'm having a year out and I'm going to Aston Martin in 2027, Aston will feed him all the information from 2026.
Yeah.
But without that commitment to our team for his return, I think how much would they keep him? He's coming back to a completely unrecognisable spot.
He is.
The other option is that he could go to Aston Martin.
Yep.
Which we touched on a minute ago with if he were to return in 27, does he go back to, does he have a team there? If he were to go in 2026, Newey's there. They obviously are focusing more on the 27 car than the 26 car. Sorry, 26 car than the 25 car, sorry.
Yeah.
Is that an option or is that a risk?
I think leaving Red Bull's a risk.
Yeah.
Sorry, I know we had Merck as well as another option. I think it's a huge gamble, and I don't know if it's one that's worth taking. Every driver who's either come back to another team or has moved to another team has proven just how difficult it can be. If Red Bull are indeed making a car that suits Max, why would you ever want to go elsewhere? The only risk is how good is a Ford Red Bull powertrain engine going to be?
I suppose the only thing with Max, and we touched on this a minute ago when we said about Schumacher in 96, the thing is with Max is is he prepared to do what Schumacher did effectively twice in his career? Once in 1996 when he joined Ferrari, and then he reaped the benefit of that by winning 5 World Championships back to back. And then he did it again in 2010 when he joined Mercedes. And he didn't reap the benefit of any of that, but they obviously did go on to.
Hamilton did.
Yeah, exactly. That's my point. So he set up a car for future generations, and then it went on to be so dominant. So he set. I'm not saying he did it all on his own, but he he was part of setting up a massively dominant Ferrari. Then he was part of setting up an even more dominant Mercedes. Is Max potentially at that point where and I know his age doesn't match where Schumacher's was.
No,
but he would be potentially going into a Aston Martin that he might work very closely with Adrian Newey and might create a beast.
Yeah.
But it might be a beast that he doesn't benefit from.
There's a risk, because I suppose the argument sits as how much appetite does he have to carry on for the length of career that Schumacher, Hamilton, Alonso have had? Because he's already said he probably won't have.
Well, I mean, and to be fair, this is not a dig at him. I'm not a dad. I'm going to throw that out there. Phil is. I'm not a parent, so I don't know what it's like being a parent. But I suppose the fact that he's also already toying with the idea of a year out, there are a lot of people. Michael Schumacher never took a year out for. No, he retired, but he didn't take a year out for a newborn baby.
No, he didn't. No.
So is it? Does that show that he's? I'm not going to say he's done it, because if he carried on, he could certainly compete with Schumacher and Hamilton 7. Yeah. But is there almost a point where he thinks, I've done it now. What's the point, sort of thing? So anyway, so Aston Martin is a potential. It's a risk. We think it's a risk. The other one is Mercedes, and obviously there is
equal risk
talk. Yeah, I think less of a risk just because the Mercedes is technically, as we sit here right now, that's a step up.
And a fully structured, functioning, long-term team with a bigger manufacturer behind it. I'm not saying Aston Martin's a small name. I'm saying the Mercedes brand is huge, and
Certainly
the financial backing behind it is huge. The only risk he has with that is how long will Mercedes be willing to pay it off? But they have a clever structure because it's owned a third by Toto himself, a third by Ineos, from what I remember. And Mercedes only own a third of that team. It might have the Mercedes brand in the name, but there's a lot less, I suppose, payout from Mercedes as there is from Ferrari. I know Ferrari won't go anywhere. I mean, if Ferrari went F1, it's over. But you know, it's a much better structure. I think they'd walk away.
And the last option is, of course, that he could stay at Red Bull, and all of this.
I think that's the safest bet.
Complete waste of our time.
I think that's what it's going to be, and it's going to disappoint us all.
So anyway, let us know in the comments if you think Max should A, stay at Red Bull, B, take a year out. We'll be able to tell which of you have got kids from that one. C, take the risk with Aston Martin, or D, Mercedes, or any other.
And I suppose the very last rumour that will not spend too long, because I'm not sure what I think of it, is the Lewis Hamilton to retire at the end of the season.
If you want that is nonsense.
It is nonsense. He wouldn't commit to this in such a way that he has just to walk away.
No, you're right. He's made such a big deal of joining Ferrari, such a big deal of wanting his 8th with them. They've made such a big deal of bringing him on board because they've not won a Drivers' Championship since Raikkonen 2007. So they...
Thank you.
Sorry. They've made... Sorry, we've not won one since 2008.
Yeah.
And that was a questionable one. So I would be surprised. I think they've made too much of a big deal. I think people are jumping on the bandwagon of him not doing so well at the start of this season, and I think a lot of people are... Those words have never left his mouth. No.
I don't believe he would give up if it got hard.
No, I agree.
Sorry, you don't become 7-time. If he was going to quit when things got tough, he'd have walked away after the 2021 fiasco with Abu Dhabi.
Yeah.
He won't.
He'd have walked away with the Alonso rivalry at McLaren. Well, I suppose that was right at the start.
No, but you're right. Is that the Rosberg one in 26? You know, he's faced adversity a lot. I don't think he'll probably come back stronger next year just to really urinate on everyone's chips. There you go, as a polite one.
Quickly finish it off then. Hamilton to retire, you saying no?
No.
I'm saying no too. Max, 26?
I think he's going to stay with Red Bull and bore us all and make this whole rumours section pointless.
Yeah, I do.
Genuinely,
but to be different, I'm going to say reunion with Adrian Newey.
Oh, do you really believe that though? Or are we just going to... Yeah, let's just...
I just don't want to be boring. We've wasted 10 minutes of everyone's time. If we're just going to say nothing will change. Thank you once again for listening. We will see you next time when we will be reviewing Miami.
Yes.